I, 19M, used to be what my parents Mark, 45M, and Sarah, 42F, considered their perfect son. I was good at sports, maintained straight A's, and basically fit into their image of an ideal family. We lived in an upscale neighborhood, went to all the right social events, and my parents were known for hosting these elaborate parties where everything had to be perfect. My mom was especially obsessed with appearances. She'd spend hours coordinating our outfits for family photos and would redo entire party decorations if the colors were slightly off. Everything changed when I was 13. We were driving back from one of my soccer tournaments where I'd won MVP. Dad was excited and not paying attention to the road. The accident happened so fast, a truck ran a red light and hit us on my side of the car. I woke up in the hospital 2 weeks later to news that would change my life forever. I'd never walk again. At first, my parents seemed devastated but supportive. They renovated parts of the house to make it wheelchair accessible and hired the best physiotherapists. But looking back, I realized they were just going through the motions of what good parents should do. Their true colors started showing when my sister Darla, 16F, began getting attention in school for her gymnastics. Darla was only 10 when I had my accident, and before that, we were actually close. She used to follow me around everywhere and wanted to play soccer just like her big brother. But after my accident, our parents started pushing her into gymnastics, and everything became about her achievements. They poured all their energy into making her their new perfect child. The change in their behavior was subtle at first. They'd forget to tell me about family events until the last minute, then claim it was too late to arrange proper wheelchair access. Or they'd schedule family outings to places they knew weren't wheelchair friendly, then act disappointed when I couldn't come. My mom would say things like, "Oh, it would be too tiring for you anyway, or we don't want you to feel uncomfortable." But what they really meant was they were uncomfortable. Darla picked up on their attitude and started treating me differently too. It began with small things. She'd have friends over and they'd hang out in areas of the house that were harder for me to access. Then it escalated to her making comments like, "It's so much easier to plan things when we don't have to worry about wheelchair ramps," or "Mom and Dad are so much more relaxed when they don't have to help you all the time." By the time she was 14, Darla had become downright mean. She started calling me wheels and would deliberately leave things in my way. Once, she and her friends thought it would be funny to move my wheelchair while I was on the couch watching TV. I was stranded there for 2 hours until our housekeeper found me. When I told our parents, they said I was being too sensitive and that Darla was just being a teenager. The real kicker came last month during our annual family photoshoot. We've been doing these elaborate photoshoots every year since I can remember. Mom uses them for Christmas cards, social media, and apparently some local magazine even featured our family once as the perfect modern family. This year, they scheduled it at a new studio downtown. The morning of the shoot, Mom came to my room all apologetic. She said, "Honey, we've been thinking. The studio has some really elegant vintage furniture they want to use for the shoot, and your wheelchair might not. Well, it might not match the aesthetic they're going for. Maybe we could do a separate shoot with you another time?" I heard Darla snickering outside my door, making some comment about how the photos would finally look normal this year. I was hurt but not surprised. This was just another example of them prioritizing their perfect image over me. What they didn't know was that my grandfather was coming to visit that evening. He's my dad's father and owns a successful chain of hotels across the country. He travels a lot for business, so we only see him a few times a year. He's always been different from my parents, more interested in real character than appearances. When he arrived, my parents were still reviewing the photos from the shoot with Darla. They were all excited about how perfect the photos looked, with Darla and her gymnastics pose on this antique chaise lounge, Mom and Dad standing proudly behind her. Grandfather immediately noticed I wasn't in any of the pictures and asked why. My mom tried to smooth it over, saying I wasn't feeling well that day. But something in me snapped. Maybe it was seeing them all gathered there, admiring their perfect family photos that I wasn't part of. Maybe it was remembering all the other times they'd excluded me. Whatever it was, I couldn't stay quiet anymore. I told my grandfather everything, not just about the photo shoot, but all of it. The forgotten invitations to family events. The way they'd schedule things at inaccessible venues then act like it couldn't be helped. How they'd stopped getting my wheelchair serviced regularly because it was too expensive but had no problem spending thousands on Darla's gymnastics competitions. I showed him text messages from Darla mocking me, videos her friends had posted making fun of me, and emails from my parents making excuses for various events I wasn't allowed to attend. Darla walked in right in the middle of this and, completely misreading the situation, made some joke about how at least the Christmas cards wouldn't need Photoshop this year to look perfect. The look on my grandfather's face was terrifying. He's usually this calm, composed businessman, but in that moment, he looked like he could breathe fire. He left without saying much, which was somehow worse than if he'd yelled. 2 days later, his lawyer showed up at our house. My parents were called to his office the next day, and when they came back, they looked like they'd seen ghosts. Apparently, my grandfather had changed his will. Instead of my parents inheriting his hotel chain and properties, everything would now go to me when I turned 25. He'd also set up an immediate trust fund for my medical care and education that my parents couldn't access. Now my parents are suddenly trying to include me in everything. Mom's talking about redoing the family photos with me in them. Dad's looking into wheelchair-accessible venues for all future family events. But it all feels fake and forced. Darla's furious because she always assumes she'd inherit a lot of money someday, and she's been even nastier to me when our parents aren't around. My grandfather says I shouldn't feel guilty because they brought this on themselves through years of cruel behavior. But part of me wonders if I went too far by telling him everything. The family dynamic is completely messed up now, and even though they never treated me right, I never wanted to destroy my family. Ida for essentially causing my parents to lose their inheritance? Edit, to those asking, yes, I still live with my parents because I don't have many other options right now. My grandfather offered to help me move out, but I want to finish high school first. And no, my parents don't help much with my medical care, most of it is covered by insurance and whatever help my grandfather provides. Update 1: the past 3 weeks have been a roller coaster of emotions and revelations. After my grandfather changed his will, my parents started making these exaggerated attempts to show they'd changed. But every attempt just revealed how deeply rooted their issues are with having a disabled son. Last week perfectly illustrated this. My parents decided to host a big family dinner, making a huge show of asking me what I wanted to eat. Mom spent the whole day cooking my favorite dishes from when I was a kid, acting like she was mother of the year. Dad kept coming to my room every hour to check if I needed anything, which he'd never done before. The whole thing felt forced and uncomfortable. When dinner time came, they'd set up this elaborate spread on our new dining table, a massive mahogany piece that Mom had bought last month as part of her home improvement kick. But as soon as I wheeled up to it, I realized I couldn't even reach my plate properly. The table was too high for my wheelchair, and the ornate base meant I couldn't get close enough. When I pointed this out, Mom burst into tears, wailing about how she's trying her best but nothing she does is ever good enough. Dad just sat there looking helpless while Darla smirked behind her napkin. I was about to leave the room when my Aunt Lisa, Mom's sister, arrived. She's always been different from the rest of the family, more down to earth and genuinely caring. She took one look at the situation and immediately understood what was happening. She helped me adjust my position and moved everything within my reach, all while giving my parents this disappointed look. After dinner, Aunt Lisa asked to see some documentation about my accident. She'd helped with the legal proceedings back then but had moved across the country shortly after for work. She's a paralegal, which became very relevant very quickly. As she was going through the old papers in Dad's office, she found something that made her face go pale. It turns out my parents had received a substantial settlement after my accident, we're talking high 6 figures. This money was specifically designated for my care, future medical needs, and to ensure I could live independently despite my disability. I had no idea this money existed. But as Aunt Lisa dug deeper, she discovered that my parents had spent most of it on family expenses. These family expenses included a complete house renovation, mostly cosmetic changes that didn't help my mobility, Darla's expensive summer camps and gymnastics training, and even a vacation home in Florida that I've never even visited because it's not wheelchair accessible. They'd kept a small portion for my medical needs, but nowhere near what was intended. When Aunt Lisa confronted them, all hell broke loose. Mom started crying again, saying they'd used the money for the good of the whole family. Dad tried to justify it by claiming that improving our lifestyle and maintaining our social status would ultimately benefit me too. But Aunt Lisa wasn't having any of it. She had helped process the original settlement and knew exactly what the money was meant for. The argument got more heated when my aunt revealed she still had copies of all the original documentation. She threatened to report them for misappropriating the settlement funds, which apparently could have serious legal consequences. Mom went from crying to hysterical, begging her not to destroy our family. Dad turned red and started yelling about family loyalty. Darla, who'd been listening from the hallway, stormed in and started screaming that it wasn't fair. She yelled that she'd earned those summer camps and training sessions with her talent, and it wasn't her fault that the money had come from my settlement. Then she ran to her room and slammed the door. Since then, Darla has taken her drama to social media. She's been posting these vague but obviously targeted messages about how some people use their disabilities to manipulate others and how one person's condition shouldn't give them the right to destroy a family. She hasn't tagged me or mentioned me by name, but all her friends know who she's talking about. Some of them have been sending me nasty messages, calling me selfish and saying I'm tearing my family apart. The situation got even more complicated when my grandfather found out about the settlement money. One of Darla's friends had shared her posts, and they somehow made their way to him. He was absolutely livid. Now he's talking about taking legal action against my parents for misusing the settlement funds. They're terrified and have been begging me to talk him out of it, saying it will destroy our family forever. Mom tried to guilt trip me yesterday, saying if they get into legal trouble, it will ruin Darla's chances of getting into a good college. She said I would be responsible for destroying my sister's future. Dad hasn't said much, but he keeps giving me these long, disappointed looks, as if I'm the one who misused the money. The one bright spot in all this is Aunt Lisa. After discovering what happened with the settlement money, she offered to let me live with her once I finish school. She lives near the university I want to attend, and her house is already wheelchair accessible because her late husband was also disabled. My parents don't know about this plan yet, and I'm keeping it quiet until everything's finalized. I'm trying to focus on my studies and ignore all the drama, but it's hard when your own family is falling apart around you. My grandfather says I don't need to protect people who never protected me, but watching everything unravel is still painful, even if they deserve it. I'll update again when things develop further. Right now, I'm just trying to get through each day and remember that none of this is actually my fault, even though my family keeps trying to make me feel like it is. Update 2: What started as family drama has turned into a full-blown legal nightmare. The investigation my aunt triggered about the misused settlement money revealed secrets that none of us were prepared for. After Aunt Lisa reported the misuse of funds, a forensic accountant went through all our family's finances. That's when they discovered something shocking. There wasn't just one settlement, but two. The first one was from the accident itself, which my parents had mostly spent. The second was from a medical malpractice suit against the first hospital that treated me. Apparently, their negligence had made my injuries worse, but my parents never told me about this. The malpractice settlement was even larger than the first one. The accountant found that my parents had hidden this money in various accounts, moving it around to make it harder to track. They'd used it to pay for Darla's elite private school tuition, $35,000 per year, her international gymnastics competitions, and what they called family investments. These investments turned out to be shares in country clubs and social memberships that I could never even use because of my wheelchair. My grandfather's lawyer explained that legally, both settlements were supposed to be strictly used for my medical care, education, and future needs. My parents had violated not just ethical but legal obligations by spending this money on other things. The lawyer said they could face serious consequences, including possible criminal charges for financial misappropriation. When confronted with this evidence, my parents' perfect facade finally cracked completely. Mom had a meltdown during a meeting with the lawyers, screaming that they'd only done what any parents would do, trying to maintain their family's social standing. Dad tried to blame everything on their financial advisor, claiming they didn't understand the legal restrictions on the settlement money. Nobody bought their excuses. The biggest change came from Darla. Her private school sent a letter saying she couldn't return next semester unless the overdue tuition was paid. When my parents explained they couldn't pay because they had to repay the misused settlement money, she was devastated. She'd had no idea her entire lifestyle was funded with money that legally belonged to me. That night, something unexpected happened. Darla came to my room, not barging in like usual but knocking quietly. She looked different, smaller somehow, without her usual attitude. She sat on my bed and, for the first time in years, really talked to me. She admitted that before my accident, she'd always looked up to me. I was her cool big brother who won soccer trophies and helped her with math homework. After the accident, she'd been confused and scared. Our parents started pushing her to be perfect to make up for what they saw as my deficiency. She said they'd constantly tell her things like you need to be extra special now and you have to make up for your brother's limitations. Darla broke down crying as she confessed that she'd enjoyed being the perfect child at first. Every time she was mean to me, our parents would reward her with more attention and privileges. It became a pattern. The crueler she was to me, the more they praised her for being strong and resilient. She said she knew it was wrong but didn't know how to stop, especially once all her friends at school joined in on mocking me. The truth about her expensive school hit her hard. She genuinely believed she got in on a scholarship because that's what our parents told everyone. Finding out that her education was funded with money meant for my medical care made her question everything. She asked me if I could ever forgive her. I told her I needed time. My parents are now facing serious financial consequences. They've had to put both their vacation properties up for sale to pay back the misused funds. All the money is being moved into a trust for my care that they can't access. Darla had to leave her private school and will be starting public school next semester. She's angry about this but, surprisingly, seems to be blaming our parents now instead of me. I'm moving in with Aunt Lisa next week. My grandfather has arranged everything, including finding good doctors in her area. My parents tried to stop this by promising they'd do better and make it up to me, but I'm done giving them chances. They had 6 years to do better and chose not to. The family lawyer says there might be more revelations as they continue investigating our family's finances. I'm not sure I even want to know what else they might find. For now, I'm focusing on the future and trying to rebuild some kind of relationship with Darla, who seems genuinely remorseful. At least now I know the truth about everything, even if it's worse than I imagined. Update 3: It's been half a year since everything blew up, and I'm finally in a place where I can talk about all the changes without feeling angry or guilty. Living with Aunt Lisa has completely transformed my life. Her house isn't just physically accessible, it's the first place I've lived where I don't feel like an inconvenience. The most significant change has been my medical care. My aunt found a rehabilitation center that specializes in spinal cord injuries. They've introduced me to new treatments and therapies that my parents never bothered to explore. My upper body strength has improved significantly, and I'm learning to be more independent. The center also connected me with a support group of other young people in wheelchairs, which has helped me realize that my parents' treatment of me wasn't just wrong, it was abusive. My parents' lives have completely unraveled. The legal consequences of misusing my settlement money were severe. They had to sell their main house and move to a small apartment. Dad lost his position at his firm when the scandal became public. Apparently, his colleagues didn't appreciate having a partner who misappropriated his disabled son's medical settlement. Mom had to start working as a real estate agent, which she considers beneath her social status. They're getting divorced now. Mom claims Dad forced her to go along with misusing the settlement money. Dad says Mom's obsession with maintaining their social image drove all their bad decisions. They're both trying to pin the blame on each other, but the court documents show they were equally involved in everything. Darla's been through a rough transition. She struggled initially at public school, especially after some of her old private school friends spread rumors about why she had to leave. But surprisingly, she's starting to find her own way. She joined the school's gymnastics team and, without our parents' constant pressure to be perfect, she's actually enjoying it more. She's seeing a therapist, paid for by my grandfather, who's helping her understand how toxic our family dynamic was. She visits me at Aunt Lisa's house every other weekend. At first, it was awkward, but we're slowly rebuilding our relationship. Last week, she apologized for something specific she did 3 years ago, hiding my wheelchair cushion before a family event so I couldn't attend comfortably. She said her therapist is helping her understand how cruel her actions were. It's strange but nice to have my little sister back, even if we can never completely erase the past. My grandfather has become a constant presence in my life. He retired earlier than planned to help me understand the business I'll eventually inherit. Every weekend, he teaches me about hotel management, investment strategies, and business operations. He says he regrets not seeing the signs of my mistreatment earlier, but I don't blame him. My parents were expert manipulators. I still get messages from my parents. Mom sends long, emotional texts about how much she misses her baby boy and how she never meant to hurt me. Dad sends emails full of excuses and attempts to explain their actions. I've blocked them both. Aunt Lisa helped me understand that their sudden remorse only came when they faced consequences, not when they were actually hurting me. Starting university next semester, and for the first time, I'm excited about my future. My new doctors say I might be a candidate for some experimental treatments that could improve my mobility. Even if they don't work, I'm okay with who I am now. The wheelchair is part of me, not something to be hidden away or ashamed of. Sometimes I find myself thinking about the family photos my parents took without me. They were so obsessed with appearing perfect that they couldn't see how their actions were destroying their family. Now they have their wish, they don't have to Photoshop me out of their lives anymore. I'm building my own life, surrounded by people who see me as a person, not a problem to be hidden away. The irony is, now that I've stopped trying to be part of their perfect picture, I'm finally happy.